Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode 27 of Sports Shorts. And today, very pleased to introduce our guest, my former boss at Fox Sports, Ed Goren. Welcome, Ed.
It's good to see you, young man. How's life?
Life is good, but here we sit, and it's Super Bowl week with a Super Bowl here in Los Angeles, and lots of issues, lots of stories. But for those of you that don't know, Ed has been in sports television for a minute or two, and I don't have enough fingers or toes to count the Emmys he's won in sports or to deal with his Hall of Fame accolades. Let's just say that Ed's a source of good information on the sports television world, which is why we're so happy to have him as our guest today. So Ed, in all these Super Bowls you've done, does anything really strike out in terms of, you know, the production part of it that surprised you or you're most pleased with?
What tends to happen, and I just saw that NBC for their game coverage is going to have 40 cameras, and God knows how many tape machines. And we got to a point at Fox where every time we did a Super Bowl, we had to have more equipment than we had our last run of the Super Bowl. And I finally got the guys and said, I have a concept here. Why don't we do less than what we did? Because the problem is when you have too much equipment, now there's a play and you want the definitive sequence of replays, but you got so many tape machines or whatever is used today, old-time tape machines, that it slows you down. It's like being out on a golf course that's just the two of us, Bobby. And we get to the green and we look at the ball and we hit the putt and that's it. And we move on. But if you add a caddy, he's going to slow down our game by taking a look, lining it up, earning his buck and saying, here's where you hit it. It's the same way with the football on a Super Bowl. The more equipment you have, there's a tendency for it to slow down or make it more challenging as a broadcast.
And I think most of the people in the audience who don't have the experience, so let's take a little step back. Because you just said, and I just read it, NBC is using 40 cameras. What people don't understand is that there's generally one guy called the director who's looking at all these feeds. And then he has to decide, how do I tell a story?
Yeah. And there is a sequence that the director will have, but that's the idea. And look, it's the production value of a Super Bowl is as good as it gets. But then again, the Super Bowl is just a game. It's not much different than how much different than it was for the NFC Championship game or the AFC Championship game. It's just a game. The real challenge is everything around the game. So our first Super Bowl had to be 96, 1996. And David Hill, who probably has appeared here at times, and if he hasn't, legendary broadcaster. So David comes to me and says, how long should we allot the pregame show, for the pregame show? Which back then, CBS, NBC, they would do an hour, maybe two. So I said to him, look, let me get back to you. I go back to my office. I called Jim Burnett, who was head of sales at Fox Sports back then. And I go, Jim, how many hours of commercials can you sell for the Super Bowl? And he goes, he adds it up. I could fill up 4 hours. I go back to Hill. I go, here's your answer. We're doing 4 hours. If they can sell it, we can produce it.
And that sort of speaks to the business part of television. And you and I once had a conversation which has really stuck with me. And it had to do with putting together these big kind of deals and looking into the future. You know, you make a deal. We did a deal in 2005 to run through 2012. So you're picking a point in time to figure out what you're going to pay down the road. You have a situation now, you have new deals at astronomical sums. It makes the 400 million that Rupert offered, you know, in 1994 seem like chump change. And now we're at these huge numbers, and it's obviously really important to whoever's buying football that they get a Super Bowl because of the delta between regular season ad sales and a Super Bowl.
Sure.
And likewise, when Jimmy Burnett says, oh, I can sell 4 hours of commercials. That's the business part. So what do you put into 4 hours? I remember in Jacksonville, I got sent out to TPC Sawgrass to have athletes hitting on the island green.
Yep. you know, it's crazy because there's no need. There's nothing that you. First off, you've gone through a whole week of overwhelmed in every sports situation, whether it's talk radio or local, and 4 hours. There's no justification to do a 4-hour pregame show other than, hey, we can make money.
Well, when you're paying, $2 billion a year, you need maybe an 8 hours of Super Bowl commercials.
Yeah, you mentioned Rupert briefly, and a story that I don't think has ever gotten out. So we start Fox Sports. It's early. We don't even have an office. We have phones ringing. I don't know how to shut off.
Call from Blue HI.
So.
Call from Blue HI.
Yeah, good. Good.
For those of the audience, my friend Ed grew up in an
Okay.
analog universe, and now
All
we're in
right.
digital universe.
So here's the deal. It's February, and as you know, Bob, yes, we have an NFC package. That's 400 million a year to cover the NFC, but we don't get every NFC game. Some of those games go to Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football. And in '94, you didn't have to be a broadcasting genius to realize the highest rated football game of that year was going to be a rematch of the NFC Championship game, Dallas, San Francisco. And John Madden calls me and he goes, Ed, there's a game on the schedule. We got to get this game. I go, John, I know exactly. I'm working on it. A week later, John calls again. Ed, did we get it yet? And I go, John, I'm working people at the NFL. Nothing has happened yet. A week later, now 3 weeks into this, he calls me and he goes, we're not getting the game. You know that. I go, what do you mean we're not getting the game? He goes, Al Michaels is telling people it's going to be on ABC. At which point I go, John, I'll get right back to you. I am now a little uncomfortable and I am out on that limb. So I go to Hill and I go, we got to get to Rupert. And Rupert needs to call Paul Tagliabue, the commissioner of the NFL at that point, and tell Paul for 400 million a year, we have to have this game, Dallas, San Francisco. So we give Rupert the note. He calls Tagliabue, making some small talk. And all of a sudden he realizes, I don't remember what bloody game am I supposed to be lobbying for? He calls Hill and me and he goes, what bloody game is it? And we go, Dallas, San Francisco, Dallas, San Francisco. He gets back to Tagliabue, who we told, oh, I got this call coming in from China. Let me get right back to you. Now he's getting right back to him. And he gives him the game and we get the game. It was the best phone conversation in 30 years that I had with John Madden. It was just delivering the goods.
So part of any football broadcast, and let's stick around Super Bowls, is I remember you and David Hill talking about something that struck me when I first got there, and that I think is really important and most audiences don't realize, and that's storytelling.
Yeah.
Because you have images on the screen, and if you're watching, you see what's going on, but the talent you hire to add that patina, add that accent in storytelling, I mean, that seems to be one of the most difficult and important decisions that an executive producer, the roles that you and David had to really put together a broadcast.
Well, certainly the hiring of talent is very dicey. I mean, there are a lot of, if you look at the history of NFL broadcasts, how many announcers pregame and game just didn't last very long. I mean, one of the amazing things to me, I mean, and I went through it back then, to hire Terry Bradshaw, Howie Long, whose audition was terrible. And after he did his audition, Hill turns to me and he goes, "Well, that didn't work. Who else do you have?" And I go, No. There's a problem here. I'm going to go down to the set and talk to the lad. And I go in and I say, "Howie," and he's auditioning with a guy who was going to audition for the host role. And Bradshaw was part of the audition just to see how he worked with these guys. And I get down to the set and I say, "Howie, like some athletes, they over prepare and they watch videos, and Howie it was a learner. And he had a stack of notes in front of him. And I go, with the notes, I go, how many notes does Terry have?" He goes, "He doesn't have any." I go, "That's the concept. See, we're going to come back tomorrow and you're going to talk football. And let's see how that works." No notes. Comes back the next day. I go down to the set before we start taping. And I go up to Howie and I go, "You're going to show me something today?" And I slapped him in the face. I swear to God, I slapped him in the face, at which point Bradshaw leaped out of his chair, came up to me, hugged me, and goes, "Ed, I didn't know you did steroids. Who the hell are you hitting?" Howie, it was much better. So you got Terry, you got Howie, Jimmy Johnson, and James Brown. And there's a story with all of them on the hiring side. But the bottom line is that Terry, Howie, Jimmy, they're still cashing Rupert's checks. It's amazing.
And then, when you set up a team and when you start Fox Sports, and you're just lucky enough that your former employer, CBS Sports, lost that package. And you brought together one of the greatest broadcast teams in the history of television with Pat and John.
Yeah, that was well on its way before I signed. It was certainly in the works, before, pretty close. And they were, and that was credibility, okay? Pat and John gave us credibility along with Matt Millen and Dick Stockton. You're doing 6 games a weekend. So those two groups gave us credibility, at which point I said to Hill, and there was a guy, George Krieger, was in the middle of this too, and actually was very helpful. We went to Hill and said, we want to hire 4 young broadcasters, play-by-play, who will be our future. And it was Joe Buck, it was Kenny Albert, it was Tommy Brenneman, and it was Kevin Harlan. Three of them, their dads were broadcasters. Kevin Harlan's dad was president of the Green Bay Packers. And I think it was Joe Buck who coined the phrase, we're the four of us, we're the Lucky Sperm Club winners. And, and they became our future in many ways. But the credibility, again, comes from the game. The studio is your personality. People were watching us, watching the pregame, which was #1 rated from day one till today. And we were entertaining, we were informative, we were different. At times we took chances, and the beauty of working with David, we both had the same backgrounds, producers, news, this, that, very similar backgrounds. And with David, he made it very easy for the rest of us to reach beyond whatever was safe and take chances. And if something didn't work, we would, as you know, we would go back to the bar and go, well, that sucked. Let's have another, and we'll move on, which was a wonderful luxury.
But that's all part of, innovation of storytelling. And I think it starts, and the most simplest of things that is one of the great legends in sports television, which was David's idea that, what's the score of the game? How much time is left? What's going on? And the creation of what the industry calls the Fox box, that little graphic up in the corner of your screen that tells all that stuff. That was one of the biggest innovations that was wildly decried when it was released in 1994.
Oh, it was in certain respects. And my first meeting with David, I actually suggested something similar, and he goes, "Me, boy, I already got it. I got it covered. It was great." The other thing with David, along the way, I thought the pregame, the studio, the guys were getting removed from the playing field, and in a perfect world, we would add somebody to the pregame show that was coming off the playing field, that was more current. And I called Michael Strahan, and he was playing for the Giants. They had a lousy year. I said, "You're going to be," the Super Bowl was in Miami. And I said, "Are you going to be at the Super Bowl?" "Yes." "Are you going to be there with your agent?" He goes, "Yes." I said, "Okay, I want to meet, and here's what we're going to do. I got to tell Hill this first, but what we're going to do is, we're going to tell you what you're going to do when you retire, whenever that is, and how much you're going to make. And we'll sign a contract." Now I go to Hill and I tell him, "Okay, I got Strahan, and he's willing to sign a contract." And Dave goes, "He's retiring?" And I go, "Well, no, not quite. The contract is going to be for $2 million, and he will be on our pregame show, and he will do this whenever he retires. The contract kicks in." And David looks at me like, "How much have you been drinking? What is the point? Why don't we just wait for him to retire?" And I go, "Here's the problem. If we wait until he's retired, CBS is going to come after him, NBC, ESPN. It's going to cost us more, and we'd be lucky if we get him." And now we have this contract. About 5 people knew. In a business where there are no secrets, 5 people maybe knew about the contract. We go into the football season, and the Giants are fairly mediocre and heat up at the end of the season. And lo and behold, 11-point underdogs. They're in the Super Bowl against New England Patriots in
The undefeated
Arizona.
New England Patriots.
The undefeated, that's right. Before the game, I'm walking the sidelines with Bob Kraft, and I go, "Bob, do me a favor. keep it close at least for 3/4, and then go. And he looks at me and goes, every damn time we do one of these games on Fox, it always is down to the last minute of the game. So don't worry about it. Anyway, now the game's over, the Giants win. A week or so later, Strahan calls me and he goes, I just was given an offer. The Giants are offering me $7 million on a 1-year deal. I know this is crazy. I told them I'm retiring and I'm going to Fox. So it was seamless, as it turned out. And
Well,
he was a great addition, obviously.
oh yeah. Well, look, as I having been one of those 5 people since I did the contract, it was amazing to me that no one knew.
Yeah.
That in the world of sports where things always get out, nobody knew. I mean, he appeared once a month, little video Michael Strahan segments, and nothing. And
Yep.
then, boom, he was on the set and hit the ground running. And, I think he's done okay for himself in the television world.
Not too shabby.
So for you, having executive produced, been involved with Super Bowls, what was the most challenging part of the game production? Or is it just another game with more cameras?
I think just as the players and coaches would say, we're not changing who we are. We're going to play the game the way we play the game. I think for the most part, yeah, it was just another game, just a bigger platform. You can get caught up in all the stuff leading up to the game. And stuff happens. One of our games, Super Bowls in Miami, we were going to be have a live camera at South Beach, and Jerry Steinberg, our technical guy, gets a phone call. Somebody just got shot and killed at South Beach. We may have to. So you got to be flexible, to say the least. But it's more complicated. The 4-hour pregame, the endless pregame.
Yeah, well, clearly, and there are things that happen in the course of Super Bowl production because it has become, in many respects, almost a national holiday.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
And so you have lots of moving parts, and in the midst, and there's some stories that I won't recount here of things that you heard, but I believe it was in Jacksonville that we had Presidents Clinton and Bush. And
True.
And coordinating with the Secret Service in the middle of trying to produce a game and a pregame show. One of you, I don't know who, decides we're going to have 2 former presidents show up and pitch for hurricane relief or whatever that was.
Yep. What happened, Jim Nance was very close to President Bush back then. And President Bush called Jim and said, your guy, Ed, you think you could have him help us out here on this charity initiative? So you got half the story, because there was also Paul McCartney. Okay.
Right.
So David Hill loves music, loves McCartney. So he says to me, okay, here's the deal. I'll take care of Sir Paul and get him to the set and whatever. You got the presidents. So I'm in the green room with Barbara Bush, President Bush, and Clinton, and our makeup artist, who was a very lovely lady and great, very, really a good person too. So now I'm introducing the presidents and Barbara to the makeup artist. And I say to President Bush that her husband and you have something in common. And he goes, what's that? And I go, well, she's married to Ron Darling, who pitched at Yale, where you played baseball. At which point Clinton jumps in and goes, his eyes checking out the full body, and points out that obviously Ron Darling made one outstanding pitch in his career.
And that's just sort of, you lead up to a huge event with Secret Service, because I was standing there, you got Secret Service everywhere, Secret Service, with talking in, getting them up to the set, and then having that great little segment at the set, and then them walking away. And shortly after that, you telling me that story, and I was just going, I love this business.
Oh, God.
But yeah, Super Bowls are, have become an American institution. And it seems to me that, I remember at Fox, we were fortunate enough to have the first 100 million audience of a Super Bowl. Do those kind of numbers sort of make you think, when you woke up the next day and Billy told you what we hit, were you incredulous, or was it break out another bottle, David?
Yeah, even when the New York Super Bowl was a blowout, and everybody in the crew was sort of bummed out that, hey, it's a Super Bowl, and I don't know, the final score was 45-7 or something. Yeah. And I went around to the guys, I said, hey, you did a great production. You did a great show. You don't control who's going to win or what the ratings are going to be. So, this isn't going to be a ratings winner, but congratulate, feel good about what you did. So the next morning, we're flying private to Louisiana for Terry Bradshaw's father's funeral. And we land in Louisiana or whatever we were, and we get a call or a cell phone. The game set a ratings record, that it was the most watched TV show in the history of the business, this blowout. And I'll tell you what, that's where it really is a challenge. And this is where John Madden was just brilliant, where he could hold a broadcast together, even though the game is blown up. He would hold an audience longer watching than if it was Bobby Hacker is doing the analyst job. And as soon as the game got out of hand, you'd hear this around the country: click, 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 click. They don't leave that quickly when it's John Madden.
Well, and that's part of having a great storyteller to really advance what you're talking about. Well, Ed, we're kind of running down towards the end here, and this was a Super Bowl themed show, so unfortunately we haven't had a chance to talk baseball, so I'm gonna have to get you back when and if we get baseball back. And I hope that these guys realize that baseball was in a bad place post 94, and it took that home run chase in 98, which they wanted deny happened, to save baseball. And I think you and I would both agree, and we can talk about it more, but please, guys, get a deal done, get back to baseball. You're going to lose your audience.
Well, they're not going to get it done before spring training starts. And let's face it, if I told you this 6 months ago, that they're not going to get anything resolved until at least midway through spring training or whatever. It's absolutely, as someone who loves the sport, I love them all, but baseball, I have a thing here. So
yeah,
how they could get to this situation potentially is beyond me. This is billionaires and multimillionaires arguing. And as a fan, the tendency is going to be screw them. But not you, Bobby Hacker.
Well, maybe one day I'll see if I can get old Bud on and have him talk about it, because I'm sure Bud's not happy that this is all falling apart right now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Look, he went through it. He canceled a Super Bowl World Series season.
Yeah.
Another day.
Another day. Ed Goren, great checking in with you. Let's have lunch or play golf something soon. And
Let's make sure we do that.
all right, great seeing you. Enjoy the game on Sunday. Say hello to the missus for me. Talk to you soon. Take care. And
Okay.
everybody, don't forget, annual renewals for Sports Lawyers Association. Go to sportslaw.org and renew your membership now. See you all
Go
soon.
off with a commercial.
Always, you know how to do TV. See you guys.
Take care, Bobby. Thank you, folks.